We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. So a little major computer malfunction to start today's program. I think we've got everything under control thus far. So if you got a thought, question, comment, something in your mind, want to hear about it. Here's something interesting. Peter Navarro, guilty of contempt of Congress. Now it's interesting. 74-year-old Navarro, he had the one day of testimony, 3 prosecution witnesses, no defense witnesses. Didn't put up a defense, but he said, "Hey, basically knew he was going to get convicted. He's looking for the appeal." He could spend years behind bars. And what's interesting is, again, this is what, being a friend of I guess of what Trump gets you. Maybe this is how this works. Because according to the Washington Post, over the past week, there have been a number of sentences handed down. You had the Ricky Tario, 22 years. You got that Joe Biggs, 17 years. A number of other ones. But, of all of the folks so far, about 700 years in jail sentences being handed down. More than 350 people have been sentenced to jail or prison time, average sentence a little less than 2 years. And like I said from the beginning, the early sentences should have been longer. You probably would have gotten more people coming around to saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe turning around, testifying against others may have made things a little bit easier." I don't know. But here's the thing. Trump's got their backs. Trump has their backs, especially the new ones. I didn't help the other ones. But the new co-defendants, he's going to hold a fundraiser. Evidently planning a big candlelight dinner fundraiser with the sons there at Mar-a-Lago. He says they say they're going to try and raise between $500,000 and $1 million. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people are going to start flipping, because you start seeing people trying to sever themselves in other areas. Yeah, going to be an interesting couple of days. Now, for me, I've been paying attention to some of the other stuff, like this John Eastman. If you saw, evidently Eastman during the disbarment hearing, evidently refused to talk about January 6th. I mean, he was asked about conversations that were had with Trump and Chuck Grassley about Mike Pence. Now, one of the weird things again about January 6th, and something I think we've talked about a couple of times over the last couple of years, is Grassley, if you remember, Grassley said, evidently told reporters that he was going to preside over, Senate debate over disputes in the 2020 election. And the quote was, well, first of all, I will be, if the vice president isn't there and we don't expect him to be there, I will be presiding over the Senate. This is the word. This is what he said. And this is what, got people freaked out because what do you know? This was the day before. This was January 5th. What do you know that you're not telling us? What's going on here, Chuck? And he's now saying, well, I was misunderstood, misquoted, whatever. But why didn't Eastman defend himself on this? Why didn't Eastman say anything about it? Tried to bail on it. Evidently, and this is another one of those moments where somebody was expecting Mike Pence not to be there. Someone was expecting him to be somewhere else, which is interesting because Pence refused to get into the car with the Secret Service. This is one of those weird moments where, again, I think there's a lot more that Pence isn't saying. There's a lot more there that I don't know, that you got to wonder, if he gets in the car with the Secret Service, where does he go? What undisclosed location does he end up in? Does he end up in a bunker somewhere? Now, of course, Eastman said that he refused to answer questions because it's attorney-client privilege. And he was asked who was the client, and Trump. Trump was the client. This is the thing that just drives me crazy, though, because these are supposed to be people who are patriots. These are supposed to be the people who love the country. These are supposed to be folks who are, I don't know, they wave the flag enough. They puff their chest out enough. It's one of those things where you got to ask some interesting questions. And I look at the trial. I hope that the hope gets televised. I want to find out what happened on January 6th. Because look, they've done a great job of spinning the narrative. I have some Trump supporter friends who, quite frankly, don't believe anything that they hear. I actually asked someone about this, and they go, well, there's always an excuse. That's just the liberal media. No, those were Chuck Grassley's words. You saw the reporting on it. You saw this. Pence himself saying, you stuck on that parking deck. They built a gallows. I mean, what part of this are you? No, it didn't happen. And, for me, I want to see the truth. I want to see what comes of this. Because ultimately, I got to tell you, I don't know, as a country, I don't know that we can get past January 6th. I mean, I see it as one of those really important moments in the country's history that there needs to be absolute transparency. And what's interesting is anytime I bring something up, I get from my Red Hat crowd the canned responses, which are, this was the FBI's doing, it was Antifa, and my head just starts to spin, because I'm going, look, I didn't see any Antifa folks there. I didn't see anybody under the Antifa flag, wearing the Antifa uniform with the Antifa membership card. I didn't see any of that. I saw a lot of people who look like me. I saw a lot of people who, well, you see at Trump rallies. I saw a lot of them. I'm waiting for the day when because it's spinning. Because I actually know a couple people who were there, and they're quite upfront about it. I was there. It was a patriotic thing. We were rescuing the country, and I'm struggling with the polar opposite excuses of it was a patriotic day. Nothing happened. It's all a hoax. It's all made up. It's all a sham. It's all the liberal media. And then on the other hand, we were defending the country. We were stopping the steal. And I'm going, so which is it? And this is again, I come back to how do you hold two opposite views inside your head and continue to fight that. So I'm in a weird spot. I'm in a weird spot with some of this stuff because, man, I just look at what's going on in that courtroom, and I look at what's going on in places that we desperately need the truth to be shared. And I'm hoping people are paying attention. I'm hoping ultimately it's gonna come down to us seeing with our own eyes what happens, and then answering the question: do we believe in the rule of law on either side? Look, I mean, because I've had people, what happens if Trump's not found guilty? That's our system. The reality is our system is set up where 1,000 guilty men go free as opposed to one innocent man going to jail. Maybe that's one of the guilty get away. But again, when I read the indictments, there's a lot there. And this is where, as a juror, as a citizen, as someone coming to it, you're going to have to, those people are going to be put in an interesting spot, because already what we know is there will be threats, there will be intimidation. They're already trying to taint the jury pool. Prosecutors are already saying, look, he's doing all this social media stuff, which again, as much as you may not like it, it's his right to speak publicly about this stuff. But it's our responsibility as citizens, as Americans, to believe in the system. Because look, don't tell me you believe in the Constitution. Don't tell me you believe in any of that stuff. The founding principles or any of that patriotic flag waving stuff. If you don't follow the rule of law, if you don't follow our system, if you're going to give Trump and his ilk a special pass, I don't know where to go from there. But I got lots to get to today. This is again another one of these interesting moments, and of course today all what breaks loose. As my wife is off doing her thing for the weekend, so no screener today. So if you call, we'll go direct to air. My son's car breaks down, so I'm dealing with that. And then, of course, to start the show, the computers all just, for some reason, maybe it was the Russians. I don't know. But it's been an interesting day. But we will soldier through it and move forward. It's just something that's never happened before. Never had the whole system just go, we're going to take a break. That was. I've been doing this 18 years now, and I've never had that kind of, everything is just going to stop. That is how my day has begun. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, want to hear it. Also, if you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Sarah Burris is going to be here, reporter over at Raw Story, going to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. Maybe get some thoughts on the Chuck Grassley thing, because I got to tell you, I'm still weirded out that Chuck freaking Grassley could be eyeballs deep in this. Quick break, right back, stick around.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 2011. That was the day hundreds of ILWU strikers blocked railroad tracks near Longview, Washington. They hoped to stop grain shipments from moving in and out of the EGT grain terminal. Longshoremen had been sitting down on the tracks throughout the summer, resulting in over 100 arrests. No trains had moved in or out of the terminal since July. But then a federal judge issued an injunction against ILWU pickets. The BNSF Railroad tried to move grain once again. ILWU picketers in Vancouver were able to hold off the train until police forcibly dispersed the crowd. Then, hundreds gathered at Longview to block the train from coming in. That's when police went on the offensive. They used clubs and pepper spray against the longshoremen, arresting 19. They threw ILWU President Bob McElrath to the ground. Rumors spread that police had broken his arm. Hundreds of regional longshoremen rushed to Longview. The Seattle and Tacoma ports shut down in protest. The next morning, 10,000 tons of grain were opened onto the railroad tracks. The grain export terminal was the first to be built in the Pacific Northwest in almost 30 years. EGT hoped to undercut the powerful ILWU, who controlled operations at the port since its founding in the 1930s. The union refused to agree to work 12-hour shifts at straight time. The EGT hoped to break the hiring hall by refusing to recognize maintenance and inside workers at the terminal. They then attempted to fill jobs with workers from the operating engineers, but the ILWU persevered. By the end of January, EGT had backed off many of its demands, negotiations resumed, and days later, the contract was signed.
A few days ago, the city of Savannah, Georgia took an important symbolic step toward racial inclusiveness, naming one of Savannah's 23 historic public squares for a black woman. Susie King Taylor, born in 1848 to enslaved parents, became a renowned educator, setting up schools for emancipated children and adults, a laudable role model in America's ongoing struggle to extend equal opportunity to all. Before adding Taylor's name, though, the name that had been plastered on that square 170 years ago, John C. Calhoun, had to be subtracted. Council members did that last year, finding the South Carolina senator and two-time vice president unworthy of any public honor. Why? Well, why would Georgians of 1853 create a monument to a lawmaker from another state? Answer: slavery. No politician in our history has been a more vehement apologist and promoter of human enslavement than Calhoun. Thus, racist Southern leaders revered him. A rich son of plantation privilege, Calhoun owned dozens of slaves. More shamefully, he built his political career by fabricating a hokey economic theory asserting that slavery was such a, quote, positive good that even white workers in northern factories should be converted to slave laborers. Worst of all, Calhoun opposed the democratic ideal of majority rule, crying that it allowed the many to interfere with the freedom of the elite property class, his own, to do what they wish with their properties, including slaves. He even favored outright plutocracy, proposing that the rich should be given a special right to overturn laws they don't like. This is Jim Hightower saying, while Savannah is doing the right thing by saying no to this autocrat, beware. For the Koch brothers network of today's plutocratic billionaires is organizing to impose his plutocratic order over us. To learn more, go to truenorthresearch.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So evidently, Vivek Ramaswamy and CNN are at odds. Evidently, they're locked in a dispute over. Evidently, there was supposed to be a town hall with Vivek, and evidently he was announcing it, that there was gonna, and evidently it wasn't. This is one of those things, one of those weird things about this guy, where he's that kind of pushy, where if you say, hey, we should do a town hall, he's already picked the date, the time, and is going to push them. And going to be interesting to see this if he gets one. I'm going to be interested to see if he gets one. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top story of the day, our good friend Sarah Burris. She's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website, if you want to check out the work that she does. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, happy Thursday.
Happy day to you as well. So Vivek, do you think he gets a town hall? Do you think he goes and he does his little Trump wannabe worst kind of person impression thing there?
I think he probably does, just because he seems to be the kind of pushy dude who's like entitled and believes that he should get whatever he wants. And CNN sort of operates like they don't want to upset anybody, regardless of who they are. And so I think that he's probably going to be a squeaky wheel on this and get whatever the heck he wants.
Yeah, see, at this point, if I was at CNN, I'm like, no.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Be like, you burned that bridge, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're never going to be the guy anyway.
Right?
See, this is the thing. I mean, this is where politics for me has really just become reality TV, and bad reality TV. Because, the model is if you've watched reality TV, and to be honest, I haven't watched a lot of it, but it's always the a-hole that you remember from every show. The person who was nice, the person who were decent, you don't remember them. They got voted out early. It's always the person who's the backstabbing, snivelly little rat that seems to get the most attention. There he is.
People have written dissertations on this, like dating back to the Real World on MTV. Like the person who was like the meanest on the shows. Remember the one dude from Survivor, the bald dude that everybody hated. I mean, there's just like everybody. Omarosa is a good example. Look at what has happened to her career, and now she's going to end up. They have a whole show now around villains that they're putting together in a reality show, and you're just like, wow, it's a reality show about reality shows. Like, that's how meta we've gone.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's really the sad reality of where we are.
I feel like this is the sort of Mayan prediction of the downfall of society, the reality show about reality show. Like somewhere there's a pyramid that has this like sketched out, and we just haven't found it yet.
No, it's weird. But here's the thing. I'm watching some of the some of the statements going on, coming out of Georgia, and it's actually the fake electors coming out of Michigan. I'm looking at all this stuff. It seems like, and maybe you're going to help me here, but it seems like Rudy Giuliani is going to be the guy who takes the fall, I think, for just about everything.
I don't know, because it seems like Sidney Powell has some sketchy behavior that she's dabbled in. And because of the whole Georgia thing, like that she and Ken Cheeseborough want their trials to be on the rapid response, whatever, like they're fast tracking their trials. It kind of means that this is going to be our first crack at all of this. And so, I mean, it can kind of obviously go either way, but Sidney Powell just looks really bad in a lot of these cases. And obviously she's already dealing with being disbarred. And so I don't know if it's Rudy. I don't know if it's Powell. It seems like some of them, like Jenna Ellis, are thinking about flipping. We saw this week that we got a confirmation from the special counsel, Jack Smith, that the IT guy has confirmed that he is now a cooperating witness. I mean, it's been a heck of a week, and it's been a really bad one for Donald Trump.
No, we were talking about this. My producer and I, we were talking about it, yesterday a little bit, about we should start doing a flip watch, and start, because at some point the rats are going to all jump ship, because they know that one, the money is not going to be there to help them, because Trump has a history of stiffing lawyers and people that he owes money to, and two, as it looks like he may not become president, do Do you bet your life on a potential pardon?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what happened with the Proud Boys. You know, they had an option to take significantly lower sentences. Like we're talking 6 to 8 years. They could have agreed to plead guilty and get that in prison. Now you got Enrique Tarrio, who's in there for 22 years. Some of them are, you know, it's from like 15 to 20 years. It's bad. And you think about, I mean, Rudy Giuliani obviously is so old, and I don't know what happens if he gets sent to Rikers Island, right? But it's one of those things where Michael Cohen and I've actually talked about this, where he's like, there are certain people that you do not throw under the bus, and your lawyer is one of them, because they know everything. And Rudy Giuliani has had a relationship with Donald Trump for a very long time, so he kind of does know everything. And Rudy has the power to basically throw Trump under the bus, and Trump doesn't want to pay his legal fees.
But
and
they're going to have they're going to have a candlelight dinner.
Right, it was like family style dinner at Bedminster, and it's like, dude, you're asking your friends to give money to him, and I mean he's racking up serious legal bills, but you're too much of a, you know, hard butt to sign off on a check to him. That just seems like, again, it's the Michael Cohen philosophy of you never screw over your lawyer.
Yeah. No, because you're right. They know where the bodies are buried, and this is one of those weird things where it's surprising to me that Trump would give these people that much information, given the fact that he's been so, you know, secretive over the years and keeping only a select few around him. And yeah, it's a weird moment.
It is, but what is funny, like speaking of the people that he keeps around him, some of these, you know, the IT guy who's a cooperator, there are a couple of other people that have, who had Trump-funded lawyers who have now decided that they are going to get their own lawyers, which that's kind of an indication that they're sort of looking to either make a deal or cooperate, or they're ready to throw Trump under the bus too. And I was watching an interview with, of all people, Chris Christie, and he was just like, you just know that Donald Trump is going to lay awake at night, every night, just thinking, crap, what did I say to them? What did I say to them? And it's true.
Do you think so? Do you think Trump has that kind of introspection?
I think he'll be afraid. I don't know that he'll be like, oh my God, what did I say to them? It'll be more like, oh crap, I said something stupid to them and I am screwed. Because he has no filter. And so he's said everything and done everything. And I mean, especially with the IT guy, he's the one who basically was told, you know, kill the closed circuit, the security videos. Right. So, I mean, that already is confirmation of obstruction of justice. So, I mean, they've already got him on that. So it's just, there's a lot of hurt going on with the Trump world right now.
Do you think it's going to matter though? I mean, because, you know, I'm getting tons of responses from my red hat friends who are, you know, Trump's going to be back, and when you're going to be sorry, and this kind of, you know, whatever's going on in court doesn't matter. What's ever going on, because, you know, look, my red hat world thinks this is all just a giant witch hunt. But when you start laying out the things that he's being accused of, it's hard to deny that he actually did all these things.
No, that's the thing is if you watch these cases, and particularly with Georgia, I think it'll be a big deal because it'll be on television. They're going to walk through it just like the January 6th committee did. And what happened whenever the country was watching the January 6th hearings is it flipped the public opinion very quickly. And there's just not enough Trump supporters out there. So, you know, I really think that it's going to make a difference with folks. And again, like his biggest problem, Donald Trump's biggest problem, is that he can't appeal to anyone other than his base.
Yeah. But what do you say? Because I've had a number of people reach out recently and go, so, you know, here's the thing, you know, Biden and Trump are neck and neck. Even with all of this horrible, you know, Trump is still way ahead of everyone else in the Republican primary. And some polling says he may actually win in the general. How's that even possible?
Yeah, that's not even possible. So a couple of the polls, like the thing with the CNN poll that was released today, they oversampled Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. And so whenever you have a pollster that's doing that, I'm asking why. And and what is the goal here? And, is this really just about getting a story for CNN? And, the thing about national polls too is national polls don't decide an election.
Right.
It's the state polls and it's the swing state polls. And the other piece of it is Donald Trump has been campaigning since the day he left office. Joe Biden hasn't, been on the campaign trail at all. He hasn't even started to fight Donald Trump yet. He hasn't even said Donald Trump's name. He's like mentioned him, the other guy or the guy before me. So I feel like, the campaign, Joe Biden's campaign, is just sort of starting to get off the ground. They're just starting to hire some people. They've just put out like their first ads. And, if you've got the guy who is doing nothing, who is doing no campaigning at all whatsoever and just doing the governing versus the guy who's been campaigning for years, and you're neck and neck, that's a problem.
Well, I see that, but I'm like, the guy's been indicted, 91 felonies or some outrageous number like this. And then the record that he had was terrible. And I love the tweet yesterday that Joe Biden put out, said the last guy didn't build a damn thing. And there's a picture of Trump, making promises, and there's Biden saying, look, it's infrastructure decade. We're creating millions of jobs. I think that's the message. I think that's what they have to hammer every single day.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's been kind of the biggest problem with the White House is that, and I think with Biden in particular, his whole history is keeping his head down and doing his job. He gets stuff done. He gets sort of caught up in the minutia with the senators. He was like in on the whole negotiation thing with a bunch of, the legislation. And I think that's because he likes that kind of stuff. That's, shaking hands is all well and good. And he loves to, get ice cream and meet people. But, getting up on stage and talking about stuff, is just, he's going to say what he means. And I think he's sort of gun shy about that now. He didn't want to screw stuff up. And it's like, dude, just talk about what you've done, man. Like, yeah. just pimp out that stuff, because that's amazing and everybody loves it. Just
go out there and be the human gaffe machine that you are.
Exactly. Like, that is the thing. The whole thing about his gaffes is that it makes him so I think relatable. And I don't know, that always made me really think of my grandpa and like appreciate that piece of him. So, and the guy's smart. Like, here's the thing, he can talk about the bills, he can talk about legislation, he can sure as heck talk about foreign policy. Donald Trump is just going to talk about,
Donald Trump,
how, himself and North Korea, and that's really all he's got.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the, again, another one of these, you brought up North Korea. This is we're in this weird moment where you've got now Russia and North Korea and China, and it's, we're in a weird kind of political global position, because if Trump is reelected, I don't know which side of the divide the U.S. ends up on in the event that, Russia takes Ukraine, and do they go to Poland next? And do they get the old band back together? And then which side are we on?
I know that is a thing I think that I've heard some of the other G20 states are concerned about, that they're talking about sort of behind the scenes. And so I'm especially the fact that the G20 is going to be in India this time. It's going to be interesting to watch, how things go there this time around. But you're right. Like, I don't know what it looks like. But at the same time, like, Trump is talking about jailing his opponents. So I'm like, crap, do we need to like find a country to flee to? I mean, it's unsettling.
No, but here's the thing. This is where my red hat crowd folks, the threats that I get are no longer I'm coming for you. Trump's coming, and they're gonna deal with people like you. There's a plan. There's the 2025 plan, and the Heritage Foundation's behind it. And we're bringing back patronage. We're gonna be attacking we're gonna be attacking political government workers. You wait, it's gonna be great.
I mean, it's hard to say, oh, that'll never happen, because we've seen what can happen. I think the big thing, the most important piece, will be what parts of Congress we keep. We've got a whole bunch of redistricting stuff going on right now, so it may very well be that the Republicans can't keep the House, which is hilarious. But we've got some Senate seats that we got to fight for this time around. So,
gonna be,
think about it. We need that Congress to be solid and reasonable. Otherwise, God knows what Trump could do to us.
We're gonna take an adventure moment here, and we're gonna go to the phone lines and see who's on line one. Who we got on the line, and what's on your mind?
Hello.
Yeah, that's you. What's on your mind?
Yes, this is Steve from Chicago.
Hey, Steve.
And I think it's a really interesting. Yes, thank you for taking my call. I think it's a really interesting topic because, those of us old enough to remember the Republican Party of old, remember when, they fought for decades against the evils of the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Empire and how they were going to take over the world someday. And I'm just amazed. Vladimir Putin came out of the KGB tradition. He was actually part of that institution. And how is it that Republicans now are just willing to look the other way? So in other words, when it was an evil communist empire, totalitarian regime, it had to be defeated at all costs. We had to fund NATO. We had to engage with them around the world, Korea, Vietnam, you name it. But now that it's not officially a communist state any longer, then totalitarian rule and aggression is just fine. I don't know how you do the intellectual gymnastics that are required to get from that to where we are now of a Republican Party that basically says, "Oh, Russia, you want to invade people? Go ahead. We don't care. We're not going to intervene." It's just mind-boggling. How are these the people who love Reagan and who proclaim him as Saint Reagan somehow? Ronald Reagan would be rolling over in his grave to find out that Russian aggression was being unchecked.
No, I'm right there with you. Sir, you want to jump in?
Oh, Steve is 100% correct. I think at this point in the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan would be a Democrat. That's the thing that's so
Again, he'd
crazy
be back to
here.
being a Democrat?
Yeah, I think he would be because he's, anti-Russia. And I mean, that's the thing that Steve's saying is that the Republican Party has changed so dramatically. For anybody who was paying the slightest bit of attention through the 80s, like my parents were, those are the Republicans who are just like, what on earth have you done? And those people are the ones that you're losing. Like, those are the folks that are just like, no, I'm done with you.
Yeah, but the way I see it is the reason that, and the way it's been explained to me is the reason the Republicans are pro-Putin is he hates the same people they do, gays, minorities, the others. So in that world, and he's hyper-capitalist. So at least that's what I'm told.
And if I can add this, for people who are paying attention, there's been this sort of downturn in terms of how we look at the Soviet Union. I'm sorry, in the car here. We look at the Soviet Union, and there's been also revisionism with regard to the Nazis and Adolf Hitler and so forth. All of a sudden, they're not quite as bad as we framed it.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure that sort of thing is on the ascendancy, because 30 years ago, if you would have said it, you'd have been laughed out of a classroom or you would have been ridiculed. We fought the Nazis for a reason. Your grandparents died there, fighting them. We fought 2 wars in the 20th century. And to save Europe, and then this idea that now, the Nazis were misunderstood, and really, we need to shift the blame as to who we really hate, because it's China and other places, and and Vladimir Putin and Russia, they aren't really that bad.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I appreciate the call, Steve. Thanks so much. Good stuff.
Thank you.
No, I mean, this is one of those weird moments, and I've been talking about this for a while because I grew up during the 80s. I remember mutual assured destruction. I remember we were at odds, and to see that the party of Reagan, to see the Republicans doing what they're doing right now is kind of frightening. And I go back to what I said, and I stand by it. I don't know what side, if Trump is in the Oval Office, I don't know what side of a war in Europe we take.
I don't know either. The thing that Steve was pointing out is it really has become, and you were saying with the Republican Party, the enemy is my friend. The people who are against the gays, against, all of these different groups, those are my friends now. And we've seen how that movie plays out in other countries, and it really does not work well long term.
Yeah.
So, again, for a lot of countries that have been out there for more than 250 years, they have kind of a broader perspective on things, and I just don't know why. I don't know why Republicans have decided that they are willing to compromise that piece of themselves, particularly Republicans in the Senate. Like, that's the thing that blows my mind is it's like, you people know better because you were around during World War II. You're 900 years old. Like Chuck Grassley, for real. Chuck Grassley is like 100 years old or something, right? Like, I mean, he's older than Mitch McConnell at this point. So,
no, I mean, Grassley's a perfect
like,
example. I mean, the fact that, and I talked about it before you came on, the fact that he said, Mike Pence might not be there. I'm going to preside over the Senate and all of this stuff, because I want to know what he meant by that. Now he's saying he was misrepresented and all that nonsense. I think there was much more to this, but we will find out. Last, I got to get your thoughts on this before I let you go. We saw the first Republican presidential debate. Trump was a no-show, of which I got to be honest. If I was advising Trump, I would have told him to stay away from all of these debates. Don't bother. I wouldn't go anywhere near them. I wouldn't give them any credibility whatsoever, because they're all the child's table, so to speak. The frame from the last debate. But Trump wants to debate Meghan Markle.
So this is the craziest story. He's interviewing Hugh Hewitt, and there's like this whole thing about Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis debating each other, because basically Gavin Newsom has just been needling the dude for years now. And so Hewitt was just like, well, what about you? Like, who do you want to debate? Like, what about Meghan and Harry? Do you think that'd be a good ratings grabber? And it's like, really? Like, this is how far we've gone now. We've gone all the way to British tabloid level with this race. Like, that's how bad this campaign is. Can we not please just be have a normal political conversation with people, or does it have to be sensationalized reality TV?
No,
and
on that side of the aisle, yeah. Because here's the thing. Here's the reality. And this is what I've been saying for the longest time. Republicans don't have any ideas. So if you have no ideas, if you have no policy aims, if you have no way of selling yourself as a functional party with actual governing principles, you've got to make a sideshow. You've got to be the circus. You've got to be the bread and circus that they are. And so not surprising at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. And this is where we are now. I think what would be interesting to me is if Trump is going to be brave enough to debate Joe Biden.
No, I want him to debate Meghan Markle. Where's she at? I now gotta see this.
I want to get in here both to it, because I think, Meghan is too nice. I think Harry just like flattens him with his sweet smile and British accent.
I saw that yesterday.
I have a thing for the gingers.
Okay, well, we've all got our thing. I do want to give you the last bit, because before we went on, you said that you saw the perfect headline. So I'm going to give you the chance to read the headline.
Dude, I wrote the best headline of all time. It's a story about the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, the former chairman, is mad about the mail that he's getting in his mailbox. And so my headline was, Trump co-defendant demands special prosecutor be removed for, quote, inappropriate mail contact. He got mail he didn't like.
I see what you did there. You sure it wasn't Matt Schlapp you were talking about?
You never know at this point with the Schlappy.
Again, we're in such a spot, such a weird spot. And again, the thing is still not talking about how we're going to make people's lives better, because they don't have any vision, any plans. But as always, Sarah, appreciate the time. Great work. Please keep it up. Make sure you check out Sarah's work over at rawstory.com. Sarah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Have an awesome weekend.
I am going to give it a try. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. This is, again, one of these weird kind of moments where I don't know how much further we can go into the circus world, but wouldn't it be nice to actually have, I don't know, something of a substantive debate? And I think Sarah's right. I wonder, in a debate with Biden, would Trump show up? I think he will. I'm pretty sure he will. But he's actually got a record to run on this time. He's actually got something he's got to defend. Just can't be the bully. Can't be the outsider anymore. Got a record. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back.
We are moving out of society's comfort zone.
Earth just had its hottest summer ever recorded.
Tourists have been trapped on the island, unable to leave.
Extreme storms caused deadly floods in Brazil and Greece. Plus, Biden administration moves to block oil drilling in Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Again.
Again?
Again.
All of those deja vus and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
People are not affecting climate change. You're going to tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice?
I'm not going to tell you anything, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I wish you would just go away. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we are still trying to make sense of the endless summer of extremes, not only here in the U.S., but all around the globe.
Oh, indeed. And now the data is in. Last month was the hottest August on record globally since record keeping began in the mid-1800s. August was also the second warmest month ever, behind only July 2023. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization. The new record hot August caps a full season of brutal and deadly temperatures. The last 3 months were the hottest June, July, and August ever recorded globally by a significant margin, generating multiple prolonged extreme heat waves and extreme storms across the northern hemisphere.
People are not affecting climate change.
Oh, my God.
Japan recorded its hottest summer ever in 2023 and set a new all-time high national heat record. Australia notched its hottest winter ever in the southern hemisphere in more than a century of record keeping. In South America, numerous countries also set new all-time high winter heat records. Here in the U.S., 80 million Americans are suffering through yet another record-setting extreme heat wave, with blazing temperatures straining electric grids from Texas to Maine. Hot weather in 9 states forced schools that lack air conditioning to close or be dismissed early this week. According to a recent study, about 14,000 public schools that didn't need air conditioning in the 1970s will need cooling systems installed by 2025.
Only if you give a damn about people.
People are not affecting climate change.
Globally, a new analysis by Carbon Plan projects that by 2030, nearly 1 billion people will be exposed to at least 1 full month of dangerous extreme heat every year. This summer, global ocean temperatures also hit new record highs, significantly boosting extreme storms. In southern Brazil this week, a powerful cyclone triggered deadly flash floods in several cities, killing at least 31 as we go to air and displacing thousands. Southern Europe was hit by a massive storm that caused devastating flooding across Spain, Greece, Turkey, and Bulgaria. In Greece, which has been grappling with Europe's worst wildfire season in decades, the storm dumped a jaw-dropping 2 feet of rain in just 10 hours, inundating several cities. In an interview with PBS NewsHour, NASA Chief Scientist Gavin Schmidt emphasized that the infrastructure and systems of the 20th century were not built for the accelerating 21st century climate crisis.
I have a feeling he must have been out on the ledge at the time.
We are moving out of society's comfort zone. And that means that places that were prepared for a certain spread of temperature and a certain number of extremes are now being hit with larger extremes. They're being hit with higher temperatures, more intense rainfall. And the structures that we have, the infrastructure that we have, is just not being able to cope with that.
The World Meteorological Organization attributes the extreme events primarily to human-caused global warming from burning fossil fuels and warned that these records are unfolding happening before we see the amplifying warming effects of a new El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. But there is some good news.
Really? Is there?
Yes. U.S. federal regulators have halted a Trump-era rule that allowed highly flammable, liquefied natural gas bomb trains on the nation's railroads, pending a new review of the safety of transporting volatile substances that must be kept at extremely low temperatures when shipped.
That is good news.
And finally, the Biden administration this week moved to impose a permanent ban on oil drilling across millions of acres of pristine Alaskan wilderness. The conservation action does not affect the controversial Willow Project due to a court judgment. In a separate announcement, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland moved to cancel all Trump-era drilling leases that had been permitted in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and restored the refuge's decades-long drilling ban.
Protections to be restored to ANWR.
Yep.
Excellent news. We'll take it. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So some interesting stories going on that make it kind of interesting. I mean, I look at there's a trial over at Google. You've got a judge vacating convictions in a bribery case over soccer broadcast deals. You've got a lot of this backroom stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention, and I thought this would be a good time to maybe get into some of the weeds. That's why I've asked our good friend Morris Pearl to come talk with us. Morris is the chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires, patrioticmillionaires.org, the website. Morris, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, it's great to be in your show, Rick. Thank you.
So walk me through. I see this story of this judge vacating these convictions of bribery over these soccer broadcasts. I don't watch soccer, so it was one of the things. Who knows? But this is an interesting argument with this Argentinian company. Walk me through some of this.
Well, basically, Fox Sports paid the head guy of the soccer league a big kickback in order to give them the rights to play like the World Cup on their network. And most people would call it kind of bribery. They fired the guy. It's considered a bad thing if you give money not to the soccer league but to the employee of the soccer league. But finally, the guys who were convicted 6 months ago in federal court here in the United States were let off now, and the basic claim is, well, the soccer rights weren't really an official act of the government of Argentina, so it's not really bribery because they're not really government officials. It came from a case. The new appeal came from a case where a associate of our former governor, Andrew Cuomo, was convicted of bribery and then let off by the Supreme Court on the basis that he wasn't actually a government official at the time. He was one of Cuomo's best buddies.
Sure.
And he had been a government official before, and he was a government official afterwards. But that particular day, he was a campaign volunteer.
Right.
And it's just like, I guess you're allowed to tell people, oh, I'm a friend of the governor, and if you pay me a lot of money, I'll lobby for you. That is what lobbyists do. But it just doesn't seem right.
Well, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem right, Morris.
It should be illegal.
It should be, but is it?
Well, not according to the justices of the United States Supreme Court, it's not. See, now here's the thing. Got to wonder how much they got. That's a really sad situation too.
And the thing here's the weird thing. 2 years ago, I would have never said that. I would have said, look, I think they're all, they all wear those robes, make them NASCAR robes, all that stuff. I would have joked about it. But now we see all of this money that's flowing into these justices from friends. And, how many friends do you got?
You can get a lot if you're a Supreme Court justice. I mean, I said in our book, Tax the Rich, where years ago, one of the things I found out in the 2004 campaign is that for a few tens of thousands of dollars, you can become anybody's best friend.
Yeah, especially in the political world. And this is, it was one of the more rude awakenings for me when I started doing this show 18 years ago. I had a friend who was a congressman from Illinois, and he said, look, the reality is no one's ever bought my vote, but they get my ear 15 minutes at a time, and for very little money. And it was amazing to me how little money it took to get their attention and to keep their attention. A couple $1,000s here and there is what they were trying to raise. And that really stuck with me. I mean, the fact that he said, look, they don't buy my vote, but if you hear it enough, if the difference between you and me, for instance, you make a couple of donations a year. I probably don't. The Congress people have got to take your call, and they will take your call because you got a checkbook. If they keep hearing from you over and over and over and over again, naturally they're going to side with you.
It's sad but true. I mean, I've cards say patriotic millionaires on them. Very few people turn down a meeting with the head of a group of millionaires, at least in our Congress. I had breakfast this morning with a Congress member who I don't remember ever meeting before, though maybe I did. We had an hour and a half talking about his concerns and my concerns and what we think should be done with the tax code and this and that. Never did we discuss, anyone sending anybody money. But still, we were hundreds of miles from his district, if not thousands. And I doubt that he has time to spend an hour and a half with most of his constituents, much less some guy in New York who doesn't even know where his district is exactly. And it's just a sad state of affairs.
And this is why, again, when you look at the things that actually get done, Wall Street beats Main Street every day.
Yeah. And we talked the other week about this Moore case about taxes that could save a lot of people a lot of money. We found out recently that the guys who were supporting, who were suggesting Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court back when Trump was president, at the same exact time were recruiting the Moores to start that case. And it's just, the idea is that they were recruiting Kavanaugh specifically because he could rule that wealth tax is unconstitutional. And it's just a sad state of affairs. And I wish we had something to do about it. But, I just think our country has just degraded so much over the past, particularly since 2016, that now, greed is good, and everybody's supposed to be greedy, and everyone's supposed to, be corrupt.
But wasn't that the 80s? I mean, wasn't that the heart of the go-go 80s? Greed is good. The one who dies with the most toys wins. This isn't new, is it?
Greed is good. Yes, Michael Douglas said that in the late 1970s, but he didn't say that corruption is good. That was not until the 2016 campaign that said, you're supposed to be corrupt. People that play by the rules are stupid. People who pay their taxes correctly are stupid.
But what do you say to the person, Morris, who goes, Trump was just being honest and saying what everybody already knew?
No, there are dishonest people, but I think the vast majority of the people are honest. I think the vast majority of people play by the rules. Now, granted, a lot of them don't have opportunities to be dishonest and steal and cheat the way some people do, or they're not brave enough or whatever. But I honestly believe that most people are not corrupt. Most people do have a moral compass. Now, not the previous president. I mean, he honestly believes he's entitled to everything, and, whatever's left over can go to whomever.
If there's anything left over.
But not everyone is like that. I think that most Americans where you live and most Americans where I live don't steal things even if they think they have an opportunity. I really believe that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You go back to this soccer case. The fact that Fox was able to beat out ESPN because of the palms they greased. You ask the average person, and they believe that's how everything is accomplished. And Trump came onto the scene and said, "Yep, I bought one of the iconic moments of the debates. I bought all these people. I've donated to all of them on both sides of the aisle because you know what? I might need them one day."
That is just sickening. I mean, I donate a lot of money to a lot of politicians. I never say, "Oh, I might need them someday," because I donate to people who I think have good judgment, who I think are good people, who I think will do the right thing at the right time. I never donate to someone on the theory that they'll change their mind because I donated to them. I donate to people who are already doing what I think is the right thing in order to help them, win their election.
No,
but
wouldn't,
fundamentally different.
Wouldn't somebody on the right say the exact same thing? I mean, one of the things that I have said about our Supreme Court is, the reason that they're there is because they've been groomed from basically day one of college, probably in high school, to sit in those places. They've been tested in every scenario. There's no guessing on how they're going to rule because they've been basically spoon-fed their entire career to be in this moment. So wouldn't the right say the exact same thing? We're just supporting people who have our interests at heart, not the American people, not democracy, not society, but our individual interests.
Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes they're right. But I mean, there are even some of our senators. Lindsey Graham said, "Oh, if we don't reduce taxes on rich people, they'll stop donating to us," and that implies that he believes there's a quid pro quo there.
No, that's an excellent point. But this is again another one of these moments where as a rich guy, don't you want to get money out of politics?
I do. I'd especially like to get my money out of politics. I mean, imagine how much I'd save if I didn't have to make political donations.
There you go. Well, and then think of all the things you could do.
But what I'm trying to do is use my money as best I can to make life better for my 4.5-year-old granddaughter. And right now, I believe that better than giving her a bunch of money is trying to change the rules so that we live in a country like when I grew up where people had opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think we'll all be better off that way, including my granddaughter.
Yeah. Before we went on air, you told me that you spent the day, going to the park, playing in the fountain, doing all these great, grandfather, granddaughter things. And, as you were saying this, what you had told me, not too long ago about why you do this work is because you want to be able to do those things without fear of, who knows what coming around the corner. That hit a chord with me.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the heart of New York City in a very safe place. And I live exactly where I want to live. I could live somewhere else if I didn't want to live here. And this is where both of my sons live, my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law, and we all want to live in New York City. And we all want to enjoy all the things, the universities, the hospitals, the fountains, the parks, the theaters, the concert halls, all the things that we have to offer because we are New York. And I hope my granddaughter grows up in the same kind of place that her father did.
But I thought I keep hearing New York, like Chicago, like all major cities, especially democratic cities. It's a burning hellscape of misery and crime and violence. And is that not so?
Not anywhere I've been able to see it. I mean, no. I mean, it's not so. We don't have any more problems we did 4 years ago or 8 years ago or 12 years ago. No, we don't. I mean, yes, there are people who steal stuff in stores, and there were 10 years ago and there were 20 years ago, and there will be 10 years from now too. Yeah. There are some dishonest people. There are people who honestly don't have any other way to survive other than stealing, unfortunately. Yeah. I'd like to do something to help them too. But no, it's certainly not gotten any worse over the last few years in any way that I have noticed.
Except the narrative that I keep hearing, and that people keep emailing me. Those blue states are terrible. But before I let you go, I got to get your thoughts on the first monopoly trial of the inner tubes, as Google's under under microscope. Any thoughts?
What they're going to be debating is the criteria about whether it hurts consumers, your regular typical people, or whether it hurts their actual customers, or the advertisers or their competitors. If you can't really argue they're hurting consumers too much because it's free. They don't charge anything to anybody. So it's hard to argue they're jacking up prices because there aren't any prices for consumers. You can argue they're hurting other companies who might want to be in, business of supplying airline flight information or maps or anything else. You can argue that they're monopolizing the advertising business and advertising analytics. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. Are these laws that were written in the 1890s about sugar and railroads and steel, are they going to protect us from Google, which has over 90% market share in, searching for things on the internet? And we're going to find out.
Yeah, this is something that, for years I've been saying needs legislation, needs regulation. We've allowed the Wild West of the internet to go unchecked. At least I think so, because it's gotten so pervasive in our lives, and there's so much information they have about us, and it's getting worse. I mean, this is the weird thing. I was just, my son and I are riding motorcycles. And he's learning and he's getting his license and all that. And I happened to be talking to him about something, a specific seat cover, and then all of a sudden Google says, "Hey, here's this wonderful seat cover that you were just talking about." I didn't look for it. I didn't Google it. I didn't search for it. I mentioned it, and somehow, miraculously, I'm not saying how, it knew, and it was there for me. Now, you could say, hey, that's great. It's just getting the consumers what they need. It's helpful. Or you could say it's a major invasion of my privacy.
Well, it's a little creepy.
Not just a little.
I mean, I mean, a lot of people think that kind of stuff is creepy. I've had an instance like that too. And is it hurting me? Really? I guess not. But, it's certainly creepy. And we're going to find out. And maybe this is the one thing that's sort of bringing all Americans together, is this fear of big tech taking over. This fear of, AI getting rid of everyone's jobs and big tech just sort of running the entire world. And I think that may be the one thing that's bringing people on both sides of the aisle together in supporting some additional regulation of technology.
Yeah, I'm leery of the future. I know the right has finally come around to the idea of a cashless society, something I talked about, 8-9 years ago, as something I'm not in favor of. I'm a big fan of cash, but it seems like we're moving there. You can't go to a sporting event, a concert, or anything in that kind of a world and use cash anymore. It just doesn't happen.
I use very little cash now. And I like the idea that I can, but yeah, I know that, you can look on some website, you can find out when I went through train stations today. You can pretty much find out where I was during different parts of the day.
Yep.
You can figure out, where I got lunch and what subway line I took. And yeah, it's at best creepy. Yeah. And I've sort of decided I'm going to live with that. And if somebody wants to know what train I took and where I had lunch, okay.
Yeah, I'm a little more leery than that. I hope you're right. I hope these are things that bring us together, that unite us, because I'm always looking for that thing. But as always, Morris, I appreciate you taking some time, sharing your insight. I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good friend Morris Pearl, chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires, patrioticmillionaires.org, the website. Make sure you check out the work that they do there. Absolutely great stuff. Quick break. Back with your thoughts after this. Stick around.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
You know, I tell you, that's the idea of a cashless society. And you know, we had talked about this a long time ago. I use my credit card a lot. I do, because it is easy. But I've often said, you know, this is, the more you use it, the more you get hooked on it, the more you move away from having a little coin in your pocket. And look, there used to be a $10 minimum that before you could use a credit card. You know, stores wouldn't allow you to buy a bag of Cheetos with a credit card. Now, thanks to the pandemic, that has accelerated in enormous ways. And I've said, look, the thing that frightens me is the kind of insight into your life that one could get, just from looking at your credit card receipts. Just looking at what you spend on, and you can drill down. We get these store cards. Every store's got a card now. Oh, you get a discount card. You go to the supermarket, it gives you a discount card. But what does that do? It tracks everything you buy. Everything. Because you want the discounts, right? It's got to know it's there. And originally my mind went to this place because I think of insurance companies as evil. Necessary evil, but still evil. At some point they go, yeah, you got cancer. Yeah, you got this disease. Yeah, this kind. We went back into your records, and you ate a little too much red meat. No, you drank something. You did this. You ate this. We've got it all. The last 25 years of your diet, and you should have known better. So we're going to deny your claim. And I remember people say, "No, you're just being paranoid." We find out that, insurance companies were doing kind of something like that. They were going back into your life, trying to find reasons to deny, people's claims for, you didn't say that you took that acne drug back in the 80s. Of course, we now know that causes cancer. You should have disclosed that. And there were teams of people who were digging through your past and getting bonuses when they could deny you care. Again, evil, still necessary, but evil. So will be interesting to see how this Google thing plays out. I hope many view big tech with a suspicious eye. I think the social media world that we now live in has been very destructive. I think and I've said before, the reality is social media allows many to be the worst version of themselves because they feel there's some anonymity there. They feel that I can say or do whatever I want because there are no consequences. I'm concerned at where that takes us. And again, the kind of craziness that gets thrown out there just to get attention. That's the weird part. And because I've always been the person who I don't want attention. I've never been the guy up on the end table with the lampshade on my head at the party. I'm not that guy. But it seems like we've become a society of people who want that. They want the spotlight. And usually for all the wrong, worst things. Or so it seems. But no, interesting times we live in. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure you get ours. They're all there, always available. Also, remember the Michael Harrison podcast episode I talked about at the beginning. That a must listen. Obviously, Michael, the head of Talkers Magazine, which we are part of the Heavy 100. Thanks to the good folks over there for including us in their list. Quick break, right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. This day in labor history, the year was 1916. That was the day that the Federal Employees Compensation Act was signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson. The act was sponsored by Senator John Kern, a Democrat from Indiana, and Daniel McGillicuddy, a Democratic congressman from Maine. The act provided compensation for federal civil service employees that lost wages because they were hurt or killed on the job. There was great debate at the time over whether employees injured at work deserved to be compensated. Before the turn of the 20th century, those who sustained workplace injuries had little recourse. Employers blamed workers for accidents and typically refused compensation, leaving families destitute. Edward Gaynor, the president of the National Association of Letter Carriers, explained the debate around the 1916 proposal, saying, quote, "The only question, the fundamental question involved in this discussion is whether or not society should bear the burden of the injured worker in any industry." Increasingly, some lawmakers were beginning to make the case that society should indeed bear that burden. Workers and labor leaders organized around issues of workplace safety and demanded a compensation if they were injured on the job. The law providing such a safety net for federal employees was passed through the House of Representatives by an overwhelming margin of 288 to 6. Although the act only applied to federal employees, it was an important step forward in recognizing that all workers deserve to be compensated for workplace injuries. The Federal Office of Workers' Compensation Programs that operates today traces its history directly back to the 1916 Act. And because of this 1916 Act, 3 million federal employees and their families are covered under the Act's protection.
A few days ago, the city of Savannah, Georgia, took an important symbolic step toward racial inclusiveness, naming one of Savannah's 23 historic public squares for a black woman. Susie King Taylor, born in 1848 to enslaved parents, became a renowned educator, setting up schools for emancipated children and adults, a laudable role model in America's ongoing struggle to extend equal opportunity to all. Before adding Taylor's name, though, the name that had been plastered on that square 170 years ago, John C. Calhoun, had to be subtracted. Council members did that last year, finding the South Carolina senator and two-time vice president unworthy of any public honor. Why? Well, why would Georgians of 1853 create a monument to a lawmaker from another state? Answer: slavery. No politician in our history has been a more vehement apologist and promoter of human enslavement than Calhoun. Thus, racist Southern leaders revered him. A rich son of plantation privilege,
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Kamala Harris is launching a college tour. Going to get out there and mobilize young voters in battleground states under the heading of Fight for Our Freedom College Tour. It's going to kick off on September 14th at Hampton University in Virginia. And look, at the end of this coming election, look, we're told this every election. It's going to be the young people coming out and voting, and the young people are going to have to save us. I kind of think that this is going to be one of those times. We need college students. We need young people to come out and vote like never, kind of like their lives depend on it. because, I don't know, might. But here to share some thoughts on, well, the big tour, and also, what the younger generation should be doing, what they are doing, and maybe how they save the planet. I've asked Lauren Bear to come talk with us. Lauren's the managing partner over at Arena. Arena.run is their website. Lauren, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'd love to end my evening on Progressive Radio.
So what do you think of the big college tour that Kamala is going to kick off, getting out there and talking to college students, motivating people to, I don't know, get active, get engaged, maybe voting?
I think this is incredibly important, and I think it's a recognition not only of the important role that young people will play in the 2024 elections, but the critical role they've actually played in several elections over the last recent years. Interestingly, when you look at 19 to 25-year-old voters, for the first time ever in the last two midterm elections, more than 60% of them went for the Democratic Party. And what we've seen is a trend that was unleashed by Trump and has only been exacerbated by the authoritarian and rightward trend in Republican politics of really aligning young folks with the Democratic Party because they know that their lives and livelihoods depend on it. So the administration is absolutely right to be going to campuses, to encouraging people to vote. But more than that, we need to be inviting young people to have a more permanent, more enduring place in our politics. And that's really what we at Arena do. We try to harness that energy, that enthusiasm, sometimes that anger that people have towards what's going on in the country, and tell them that they too can get trained, get a role in our civic and political ecosystem, and really make a difference, not just on election day, but year round.
Yeah, but you just hit a number there. 60% of young people broke for the Democrats and Biden, which is why you look at someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, who's saying, you know what, we need to raise that voting age to 25, and we need a literacy test. Not a literacy test for those people over 50 who say some really crazy things at Trump rallies, but for those young people who are breaking the way you described.
Look, I mean, what he's proposing on the campaign trail is entirely consistent with what Republicans in the Republican field more broadly have been doing, which is taking a tack that advances voter suppression because they know that that's really their only path to victory. National popular vote has broken for Democrats in recent years. To the extent that there are Republican majorities, it's because of voter suppression and gerrymandering. And so, it's not a surprise that's what they favor. It is somewhat surprising that they say the quiet part out loud now when they didn't used to do that until the recent past. But what I think it means more than anything is that we know what we're up against, and we have to ensure that that is not who holds office in 2024 and beyond.
Earlier I talked about an interview I had done with Michael Harrison, the guy who's the head of Talkers Magazine last week. And he told me, he goes, you don't sound like a left, like someone on the left. You don't sound like a liberal. You don't sound like that. And the reality is it's probably true, because what's happened over the years is anytime you hear about who someone on the left is, who someone who is liberal is, it's coming from someone who's on the right, trying to explain who and trying to pigeonhole people on the left. So do you see that kind of happening with young people as well? That that they're being pigeonholed into some of these more extreme positions that keep getting thrown out there to make them look either stupid or incapable of leading. Any thoughts?
Well, what I would say is that Democrats as a whole, and this extends to young people as well, we're a heterogeneous coalition. We don't all look the same. We don't all think the same. I think that's the beauty of the party, is that we have always found strength in our diversity. And I think the path to winning is recognizing that we may come from different places. We may be of different races, religions, creeds, sexuality. But overwhelmingly, what is motivating people to vote Democratic is one, an understanding that our democracy depends on it, but two, a real understanding that our lives and livelihoods depend on it. Whether it comes to taking any kind of meaningful action on gun control or reproductive freedom or LGBTQ rights. There's only one party that is truly advancing a position that recognizes the inherent dignity and value of all Americans. And so, I really think that our electoral strength is greatest when we lean into that diversity as a party. And we at Arena, certainly as an organization, have been a big tent organization. We see folks of all different stripes come to us for our training, seeking to find a bigger place in politics. And we think that that's a good thing because we're going to need all comers in order to win.
Yeah, it's an all hands on deck situation. You're listening to the Rick Smith
Exactly.
Show. We're here with Lauren Bear. She's managing partner over at Arena. Arena.run, the website, if you want to take a look at the work that they do. Now, you guys run this Arena Academy to do the kind of training that you're talking about. Walk me through, what it is that is, what people can expect, and is there like an age range? Is there a maximum, minimum? What is it?
Sure. So first of all, the premise behind Arena Academy is that we understand that it takes great candidates to win election, but candidates can't win elections on their own. They need really strong, well-trained teams behind them. And so what we do at an Arena Academy is we take folks who might not know anything about politics, might not have been involved before, but have that energy, that enthusiasm and drive, and we train them to be campaign managers, we train them to be organizers, we train them to be digital and data directors. And then after that, we go and we help them find jobs around the country and up and down the ballot. And, we do see quite a few young people, but it's not just young people. We trained someone in Texas last year who was a 30-year veteran firefighter, and in his retirement, didn't want to just sit back and watch our democracy get taken away from him. We trained him. He went to Georgia and worked as an organizer for the Reverend Warnock. We get people all of the time who are career changers, who want to take their skills and experiences and apply them to the civic and political realm. So yeah, there are a lot of young folk, but we, again, are a big tent. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in getting involved and personally making a difference to check out our trainings.
So it's not just Gen Z you're focusing on; it's everyone. But I think you would like to grab a bunch of Gen Z to get them out there.
Of course, and they are the biggest cohort.
No, because look, I have some hope for the future. If it weren't for the number of kids that I've met, and I probably shouldn't call them kids, but if it weren't for the number of people that I've met in that generation who are almost as pro-labor as I am, who have a vision for the future that they want to live in and that they want to create, I would be I'd be in a fairly dark place right now, given what I see coming down the road. But the fact that there are people out there who are fighting the good fight gives me hope for a future.
It certainly keeps me hopeful as well. I get the question quite a bit. How do you do this work day after day and in an environment where it seems like Republicans just coming up with sort of one, an even more diabolical plan day after day to really try to diminish the least fortunate among us. And what keeps me going is the folks who are coming to our training, individuals who are survivors of gun violence and who want to take that pain and trauma and channel it into action, individuals who are trans and are seeing their very existence threatened in so many places around the country and want to build political power, not just for the trans community, but for all Americans, women who are concerned not just for themselves, but for their children and future children, about whether they're going to have control over their own bodies and reproductive freedoms. These people are taking everything that is being thrown about that at them that is meant to discourage them and dissuade them from getting involved and is intended to make them feel hopeless. And they're saying we won't. They're taking the opposite approach, which is to raise their hand and jump in the arena. And you're right, it's a very hopeful and inspiring thing to watch.
No, I mean this campaign season is going to be very interesting on a number of levels. The presidential, obviously, but it's all those local races. And I cut my teeth, working, stuffing envelopes on campaigns, and I'm hoping we still do all of that. But we've gotten a little bit more training focused because you've had to. I mean, the right has built an incredible machine. I mean, you look at from their state policy networks to their dominance on cable news and talk radio, they have built institutional power that the left and Democrats never did, because we always relied on people power and the power of us getting out in the streets, because ultimately, while they have all the money, we've outprocreated them. It's good to see us finally maybe doing some of that organizing.
I think you're exactly right on this. I mean, what the right has done over the last 40 years is two things, which have been smart. One is recognize the importance not only of winning at the top of the ticket, but down ballot and dominating in state legislatures and local races and school boards and the like. But two is playing the long game, which is recognizing that you don't win anything or everything in a single election cycle. Some victories require a 10, 20, 30-year time horizon. And on the left, I think we're starting to catch up with those truths. We need to be competing everywhere, from the smallest local race for city council or mayor of a small town, all the way up to the presidency. And we can't think about this as on years and off years. It is 365 days of the year, every single year, to build the kind of power we need to sustain victories over the long run.
Well, like they say, democracy is participatory. I hope people join in. I hope people check out the website arena.run. You can go there to get more information and sign up to be part of the academy. Get some training, get involved, get active, get engaged. I have some great hopes. Final thought?
Rick, I just want to thank you for having me here and echo what you said. Our democracy depends on each and every one of us to be a full and active participant, and we at Arena want to help you find your place in politics. So come join us.
There you go. Good stuff. I appreciate the time, Lauren. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Lauren Bear, managing partner there at arena.run. If you're interested, if you want to join up, work on campaigns, help out, learn more, that's where you go. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back with your thoughts. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1980. The 32nd annual Emmy Awards show took place despite 51 of the 52 nominated performers boycotting the event. At issue was a strike by the members of the Screen Actors Guild. Powers Booth was the only nominated actor to attend. He won the Emmy that year for portraying the cult leader Jim Jones in a made-for-TV movie. In his acceptance speech, he acknowledged his lonely presence at the Emmys. He said, "This is either the most courageous moment of my career or the stupidest." SAG members, along with the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists and the American Federation of Musicians, all went on strike that summer. Members of the Screen Actors Guild were displeased with their salaries. They wanted a 32% increase. They were also concerned about changes in the industry. They did not feel they were being compensated for the revenue they helped generate through paid cable and video cassettes. The Screen Actors Guild had its origins in the Maskers Club. Actors formed that club because they were upset with the grueling hours expected of them by Hollywood studios. Eventually, in 1933, the Screen Actors Guild was started. After initial hesitation by some big-name actors to join the union, SAG membership grew from 80 to more than 4,000 members. Many famous actors supported the union, including Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney. In the late 1940s, future President Ronald Reagan was elected president and served as president of SAG for 7 terms. The 1980 strike was one of the longer strikes in the union's history, lasting 94 days and settling at the end of October.
Hooray for Hollywood, that phony super coney Hollywood.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. So Vivek Ramaswamy, I think this guy's just throwing things out there to get attention. I honestly, the idea, what we should raise the voting age to 25. He knows he can't do that. That's never going to happen, but throws it out there anyway. Why? Because he wants to continue that age divide. Now he's going, you know what? Felons should have, ex-felons, they should have guns. Now, this is a guy from the same party who doesn't think that former felons should be allowed to vote, but we're going to give them concealed weapons. Again, playing to that gun fetish. And now here's the weird thing. This is one of those weird things. By saying this, I gotta wonder, all of my gun nut friends, who, a lot of them believe that we should have stronger background checks. A lot of them believe that we should have some baseline sanity. I don't know that they're going for this. I know this was to get attention. I get that because he needs that. But I don't know that it's gonna help. And look, this idea that we're gonna raise the voting age to 25 and it's not gonna happen. You would need a constitutional amendment and it would not pass. The weird thing is that this I believe would make that number that 60% of young people breaking for Democrats probably even worse. Because how many people under 25 are going to go, you know what? Yeah, I should have to take a literacy test. I shouldn't be allowed to vote. I spend a little time, when I have a couple of down minutes scrolling through some of the the videos, the reels, the Instagram stuff. And it's amazing how many young people have gone, so let me get this straight. 18, I can go to war, but I can't vote? Is that what you're telling me? Because I can't already drink. You've already taken that from me. I can go die in war, but I can't have a beer. And now you want to take my right to vote? Which brings me back to, why are 40% of young people voting for Republicans? How is that possible? And then the literacy testing. I got into this back and forth with my producer of going, well, maybe we should have a literacy test. Maybe you should know some basic tenets of how our government works. And he was dead set against it. No, absolutely not. Because, jelly beans. For those who don't know, in Alabama, one of the tests was guessing how many jelly beans were in the jar, and you were never going to guess. So meaning black folks were never going to vote. And if you look at the literacy test that they had back in Alabama in the 60s, virtually no one would pass it. And that was the point. So, as a mental exercise, I'm going, well, I got to be honest with you. There are a lot of people I know who vote for Republicans who don't know anything. Maybe it's enticing until you realize, I guess it comes down to, who's given the test. That's a scary thought. I mean, think. The image of my high school civics teacher just popped into my head. And to be honest, he was the person who really turned me on to politics. Really turned me on to the idea that government is important, that political activity is important. And it was very simple. It was, he said, look, at the end of the day, politics is how things get done. Government decides who gets what. And I'll never forget, it was 1984. And he said, none of you 18-year-olds, none of you vote. Don't vote. I don't want any of, don't bother. He said, this way it makes my vote stronger. The more of you who don't participate, the more of you who stay home, the better it's going to be for me, because I'm going to be able to have, my vote's going to matter more. And I'm pretty sure that's the reason he said that, was to motivate people to go, well, why should you have more of a voice than I have? I'm going to go out there. I'm pretty sure that's the reason. But I just thought of him. Now, as I found out years after, he actually did vote for Reagan. He was a dyed-in-the-wool conservative, and for the time, fairly radical conservative. I never knew that from his teachings. He was very straight down the middle of the road, very, figure it out for yourself. But he was the one thing that I do remember more than anything is, well, how do you know which party you belong to? How do you decide? Do you flip a coin? Do you get assigned that? Because my grandparents were not politically active. They were not. They I don't think they ever voted that I can remember. And his response was very simple. He said, "Well, you have to decide. Are you going to be rich or poor? And if you're rich, clearly you're going to want to be with the Republicans, because they're going to call for tax cuts, because that was the big thing then, deregulation, all the things that Reagan was pushing for. And if you're poor, as I was, you're going to probably be a Democrat, because you're going to want more social programs to help the poor. You're going to want better access to health care and education for poor people that I remember using, and I remember being bad as a kid." He said, but if you're in the middle, you then have to decide which one you're closer to. Are you closer to being rich or closer to being poor? Is your future prospect going to be you're going to be one of the very well-to-do, or is it possible you miss a couple of paychecks and you're back to being poor? And to be honest, in the classroom that I was in, most of the people at that time were going, well, we're going towards being Democrats, because of that safety net, because of that idea of community that he talked about. He did a really good sell for being a Democrat and pushing for more social programs and more help for working people. Only to find out later he was a big Reagan guy, which is quite remarkable to me. But I look at, we're in this situation right now where I don't know that there are policies that the Republicans are pushing that would grab working people. That I don't get the draw at this moment. We're in a weird situation. But I'll tell you one thing. If young people don't come out to vote this election cycle, because I'm already hearing the media frame, well, people are walking away from Joe Biden, the polling, it's neck and neck. I don't put any credence in any of the polls. I'll bring them up. I'll say, here's what this poll says, and try and talk about it that way. But I don't put any real faith in them anymore. When you find out that Trump spent what was $700,000 on that poll that the Wall Street Journal talked about. When you realize the person who writes the question and who you ask the question to matter more than the actual questions, it kind of taints the polls. And that's, I think, why they do it, to create that idea of a horse race, to create that idea that there's something out there. That conflict, to create that, you got to tune in. And look, this is what, reality TV has brought us. We have now reality politics. And it's not good for us. It's really not. It's hurting us in many ways, because ultimately we're not getting the things that we need to get done. But we'll see. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Make sure you check out the Arena folks over at arena.run if you want to get involved in a campaign, want to learn some new skills, want to learn how to run a campaign, maybe be a candidate. Because the way we move forward is by working people, average, everyday folks like you and me, stepping up, standing up, and throwing our hat in the ring and actually running for stuff. Take over the halls of power. It's my thought. Also, remember, grab the podcast. Wherever you get your favorite, you'll find ours.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people